This is Face the State with Rob Hanrahan and featuring political insiders Tony May and Charlie Giroux.
Good morning and welcome to Face the State. I'm Rob Hanrahan. This week we're talking about what's happening in Washington and how it impacts Pennsylvania with U.S. Congressman Glenn G.T. Thompson of the 5th District. Glenn, thanks for being with us.
Rob, thanks so much for the opportunity to be here.
I want to start off talking about your bill, Medical Evaluation Parity for Service Members. Now, this deals with mental health of soldiers and people serving. We had the Fort Hood shooting in 2009. That, of course, was devastating. 11 died at the scene, 2 later at the hospital. Then just this past April, another shooting there, 4 people, including the gunman, killed in that case, several injured. In both cases, the mental health of the shooter has come into question. So tell me about MEPS, the Medical Evaluation Parity for Service Members.
I will. Actually, I'll tell you how I started on this. All of my better ideas come from my constituents. And I got a call from a staff sergeant in the 3rd Infantry Division. Called me after his unit had returned from Iraq a few years back to tell me about his buddies that had committed suicide, both on post and in the community after they were discharged. Turns out the constituent was my son Logan, who's still a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army. And so we started to work on this issue. We've actually had 2 pieces of legislation that the President signed into law, the STEP law, which expands telemedicine and access, also the TAMP law the President signed in January that, it provides, when our soldiers, our military get out of the military, they get 6 months of transitional assistance. But statistics show the first signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress kick in at 8 to 9 months. Not today, though. After by TAMP law, they get an additional 6 months followed through telemedicine, saving lives. This is kind of the 3rd in the series. Most people are pretty surprised, Rob, when they find out, when you join the military at the time of induction, you get a pretty thorough physical examination, poked and prodded. Oh, yeah. But there's no mental health exam, none. And statistics are startling. Well over half of the individuals who attempt or commit suicide in the military was not their first attempt. Their first attempt was before they joined the military. And that most individuals that attempt have never seen combat, so some pre-existing conditions.
So is that part of this
It is. This bill would just require a mental health evaluation at the time of joining the military, or one of those points where you get the physical exam. It may be if you're going from active duty to reserve status or National Guard to active. All those you get a physical exam. This would require a mental health exam.
Now that's going to require more doctors, different type of doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, things like that. Who's going to pay for that?
Well, it is. This bill is actually, like the previous 2, has been scored by the Congressional Budget Office that it can be done with existing resources, just reallocated appropriately at no significant increase in spending. This is not about throwing money at a problem. This is about providing the right type of common sense solutions. This is about saving lives. I'm an Army dad. I'm not looking to wash anybody out of the military. But I think we have an obligation to take care of those who seek to serve and are serving. And, there are some folks that need help and they're not getting it.
Personally, I agree with you on that. Unfortunately, due to the Fort Hood shooting in April, just this past April, the traction has picked up. It's getting a lot more backing. You got like 29 or 30 more organizations behind it.
Yeah, we have well over 40 between military organizations and healthcare organizations. And the bill is strongly supported bipartisan, Democrats, Republicans, which all my bills are that way. I try to be a problem solver. And that means we come to the table and see what we can agree upon, and then we build cost-effective solutions based on that. And the MEPS Act is reflective of that. And I'm hopeful. The Armed Services Chairman, Mr. McKeon from California, has indicated he would welcome the MEPS Act as an amendment to the National Defense Authorization that we'll be voting on probably in the weeks to come.
Wow. Well, keep us informed of that.
We'll do that.
And I'll stay on top of that, too. Let's talk a little bit about the transportation bill. Transportation
very important.
Delivered a draft of it recently. And I think the thing that struck you the most was tolling. It lifts the restriction on states. They would be able to. It's not that they're allowed now to just put tolls out on all interstate highways if they chose.
It would take the cap off of a pilot program that was put forward many years ago, but it's never been successful. There really hasn't been any tolled highways built that way. And this actually isn't from the Infrastructure and Transportation Committee. This proposal, this was just a blueprint. This was the idea that came out of the White House, and that's what I was responding to.
Oh,
and it's a flawed idea. I mean, it was considered lifting the pilot off of lifting the cap off of tolling interstates when we did MAP 21 about a year and a half ago. The committee completely rejected that idea. And the reason behind it is, it really is not that tolling's a bad thing. I think that funding our highways and our transportation is very important to the economy. But the fact is, to put tolls on existing interstates really doesn't make a lot of sense. There is sufficient tax revenue that comes in from federal gas tax to pay for that maintenance, to maintain those interstates.
What about your district, though? I mean, you travel through the state. In fact, just this weekend, you've traveled from Philadelphia all the way to Pittsburgh, back through the central part of the state. On the other side of the aisle.
I was in Erie 3 days ago. We'll be back to Erie.
Senator Casey was just here last week talking about transportation money, federal money, to repair our roads and bridges that are not part of the PennDOT system.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that's something we need to deal with, and I think we will. I think probably in the weeks to come, you're going to start to see some traction in the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. Our current authorization expires this fall, and we need to have something in place. And the hard part is, how do you fund it? Don't get me wrong. I don't think all tolling is bad. I think actually if we're building new capacity, if you're building a brand new highway, I think that's a very appropriate way to go. If you're adding capacity, trust me, I was stuck on a Schuylkill this morning coming out of Philadelphia. They could use a third lane, and I'd be more than willing to pay the tolls in order to take that congestion off that traffic. We need to look at how we pay. The gas tax really is inadequate, and it's largely because we're a victim of our own success of an increase in cost efficiency. Our cars, our trucks are getting far more miles on a tank of gas, so people are filling up less. We're seeing a growth in alternative fuels such as LNG, compressed natural gas, and liquid natural gas with the natural gas boom. Those aren't paying any kind of a fair share. We need to look at it. But here's my concern with tolling existing interstates. Number one, it's we have adequate monies in order to maintain those roads alone. Number two is we have such incredible economic potential in Pennsylvania. We live within a day's drive of the largest majority of the citizens of the United States of America. You want to move the economy. You want to move manufacturing. We need to get a resurgent in manufacturing. I had a businessman just call me last week to tell me he was all willing and ready to add another location, to create more jobs, expand. But when we heard about what the president was proposing, tolls are a tax. And
they're on trucks. They're all the goods that are moving, everything.
And it doesn't work for him, the economics.
I believe, plain and simple, tolling existing capacity will do nothing more than cripple our economy.
That's my concern.
But you're okay with it as long as there's an improvement being made.
Oh, yeah,
a widening
absolutely.
The road,
there's a lot of things we're going to have to do to be able to fund this, and we need to be able to get it funded.
All right. I know you want to talk about the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. You want them to reevaluate the proposal to list the northern long-eared bat as endangered. Now, that one kind of stuck out. A lot of issues going over. We were speaking before the program, but tell me about that push and why you're so concerned.
Well, I am concerned because it's all under the jurisdiction of the Endangered Species Act, which was an important piece of legislation, but it's never worked. The way they approach it, which is from a punitive perspective, I don't think we've ever saved a specific species. So I'm a part of a task force that was formed in the House. I'm on the Natural Resource Committee, and we looked at doing a thorough overview and a review of the Endangered Species Act, looking how can we improve this? How can we add transparency? How can we address some of the litigation problems that just compounds the issues? Because in the end, all these things is not saving species, and it needs to. At the same time, we shouldn't cripple our economy. We shouldn't cripple our ability to create what is the most important thing that we could ever provide